Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NFL Wildcard Weekend episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. I know that the podcast has generally come out on Tuesday mornings this NFL season, but with no Thursday night football, then I had an extremely just general busy night on Monday. I am recording Tuesday night for this weekend's NFL action, and usually I would do a pick for every single game in the regular season, which was the Road to 272, which I am going to recap in this episode. And then I would either do the player prop countdown, the audio version, or the written version. I am combining them, as I actually have for the past couple of years for the playoffs. So I will go through not only my best bet on a sider total for all 6 playoff games this week, but I will also be giving you my favorite player prop for all 6 NFL playoff games for the wildcard weekend. Before we get into that, though, I will be recapping the Road to 272, the player prop countdown, and I will also go through the episode I recorded right before the season started, and it was also an article I wrote on SI where I gave my best futures bet for all 32 teams. So I'm going to review those, talk about the ones I won, talk about the ones I lost. There is one pending, but at this point I do think that one is probably lost. So I do have the final record for all 3 of those aspects of betting. And then I will obviously end the show with my picks and my player props. Before I get into that, I'm going to talk about something that a lot of you probably don't care about. So if you want to skip forward, I would skip forward about 5 minutes if you don't care about Canadian hockey, because I need to get something off my chest. And I talked about this. I was actually on Oddshark's show this past Friday, and I talked about it for a little bit, and it got clipped out and put on their Instagram, and a lot of people agreed with me, and I want to go into it a little bit more in depth in here, because if you're not a hockey fan, you're probably not aware of that the World Juniors took place over the holidays, which is the best hockey players that are, what even is the age? Under 20, I think. And it's a big deal in Canada. It is, on their national network, it is one of the few things of the year that almost all Canadians tune in, even non-hockey fans. I know in the U.S., if you're not a hockey fan, you probably don't even know that exists. Canada has dominated this tournament for the majority of my life. If they don't win, they're at in the very least in the semifinals, probably in the finals, and walking away with the silver medal. 2 years now, we have not even come close. We have been eliminated by Czechia in 2 straight years. And this year, not only did we lose to Czechia in the first round of the knockout stage, we also got embarrassed by the United States, who went on to win the whole thing, and we lost to Latvia. In Canada, losing to Latvia would be like the equivalent, in my opinion, or it would have used to be like a college team beating a Super Bowl champion. It just doesn't happen. I don't think it ever happened. It was truly a disgrace, and it has shown that Hockey Canada, which is the governing body over Canadian hockey, is corrupt, is rotten from the inside out. And I have experience with this. I grew up playing hockey. I could skate before I could walk, pretty much. I played hockey from the age of 3, I think I started playing hockey, all the way up until about age 17 when I decided to focus on football, because that was my better sport. But I went up through the Hockey Canada ranks, and I knew by the time I stopped playing hockey that something was afoot and that Canada hockey was going to suffer. And we have now seen that now come to fruition on the international stage. It actually started with goaltending, a lack of development, and more than anything else, a pay-to-play organization. It is hockey is defined in Canada now, and if you live in Canada and grew up in Canada and play hockey, and know people that play hockey, especially currently, if you want to go to the best camps, you have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars. Hockey, to begin with, is already expensive. You got the gear, which is expensive, especially if you're a goalie. You got ice time. It's not cheap to play hockey. Now, if you want to get recognized and play on the good teams, you now have to go to privately run camps that cost thousands and thousands of dollars, generally between $5,000 and $10,000 to go to. And if you want to make the select teams, which is not, you can't just, play on your local teams and get scouted by a junior team and get drafted that way. You now have to go play on the select teams, which cost even more money. You're adding on another probably $8,000. Those teams are also being selected by, as it happens, the same people who run the private camps that you need to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So now about 15 years later of this happening, you have seen the result, which is Our top hockey players are the sons of rich kids, or sons of rich adults, to be completely honest. They are, look at the youngest Canadians in the NHL right now. Research them a little bit. You don't get any stories of, or it'd be very, very rare at this point, of a kid from a rural area or a kid with a tough upbringing. It is trust fund kids who are able to play at the high level because their parents have the money for them to go to the private camps, which you have to if you want to then play on the select teams. If you're from a rural area, not only do you have to pay close to 10 grand to go to the camps and close to 10 grand to go play on the select teams because they're not in rural areas, then there's the travel just to get to those games, just to get to those practices. It is an insurmountable feat for anyone who isn't extremely well off. And now you see that in the personalities of players at the World Juniors and even in the young Canadians in the NHL. I get fired up about a lot of things on this podcast and in my job when talking about sports. A lot of the time it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. When I start talking about the state of hockey in Canada, I truly actually get really upset. Because I'm a Canadian. I am a proud Canadian. I played hockey my whole life. I'm a huge fan of hockey. And to see the state that Canadian hockey is in truly pisses me off. Because now we have young kids who are spoiled, to be completely honest, rich kids. They play selfish hockey. They play soft hockey. They lose to Latvia, go back to their hotel room, and then sexually assault a girl because no one has ever said no to them in their lives. That's the state of Hockey Canada right now. It's corrupt. It's about connections. It's about money. It's about politics. It is not about the sport of hockey, which the great thing about sports, which is why I love them, is that it's supposed to be a meritocracy. It is supposed to be the cream rises to the top. It is supposed to be the best players will play on the best teams and will eventually go on to not only play in the NHL, but represent your country in international competitions. That is no longer the case in hockey. Now it is the richest kids, the most connected kids who now play on those teams, who now get elevated to the select teams, who now represent our country on the international stage and, quite frankly, embarrass us. Not only on the ice, they embarrass us off the ice as well. How many stories do you hear about guys on the World Junior team or hockey players in their late teens, early 20s doing things that they shouldn't be doing? Acting like an asshole at a bar, sexually assaulting a girl. Enough is enough. Now, I don't necessarily know what the solution to this is. You would hope that the way it used to work was that teams, you just had your local minor league teams and you would work your way up through Pee Wee and Bantam, and I think they're all now like U12, they're all classified by age groups now before they actually had names for them. And then the junior teams would then go around and scout just from those local minor league hockey teams. With the invention of these select teams, these private camps, it is now taken away from those. Can you ban those? I don't think you can necessarily ban them. I think I used to always talk about how the solution to the college sports problem in the United States is that they should use the junior program that Canada has, because then you don't have athletes who are going to school on campus and also making millions of dollars. Instead, you have athletes who every year they play junior hockey. After they're done junior hockey, they then get a year of school paid for. They can make money without being on the campus, all those things. But maybe the Americans have it right. Maybe sports should only be tied to a school. So then as long as you can go to that school, you have a chance to make the team and be fairly evaluated, instead of being evaluated by the guy who runs a private camp, who actually doesn't even a lot of these guys, and this is another thing, a lot of the guys who run these private camps in Canada don't even know what they're talking about. There was a private goalie camp, because I played goalie in Nova Scotia, that was run out of Halifax, and the guy was teaching an outdated style of hockey, an outdated style of goalie. The goaltender position has evolved and continues to evolve every decade. This was probably in the mid-2000s. He was teaching a style of goalie that was outdated by about 6 years. And people wonder why there's no great Canadian goalies anymore. All the best goalies in the NHL come from Russia, some from the States. It's because Canada hasn't developed their goalies. It's because the guys who run these camps are just well connected. They actually don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're teaching. And then those are the same guys who are not only teaching kids, but then also they're at the tryouts evaluating them and choosing who's going to be on the team. Well, who do you think is going to be on the team? Just some random Joe Schmo from the middle of nowhere who actually is good, or the Kid who has paid $5,000 to go to their camp. The kid who has parents that you know personally, that you work with, that you know is well connected, that you know who has money. If you want to know an NHL example of this, look at Mitch Marner, who is probably the face of the first wave of these type of Canadian hockey players. Last year during the playoffs, he did not have a good postseason. He came off, sat on the bench, started pouting. And William Nylander, a Swedish, told him to suck it up and just shoot the puck. 20 years ago, could you imagine a Swedish hockey player telling a Canadian hockey player to suck it up on the bench? The Swedes were always known as the soft players, and now we have the Swedes on the bench telling the Canadians to stop being a wuss. It's embarrassing. We have lost our grit as a country when it comes to hockey. All of our hockey, think of the great Canadian hockey players, and even those of you who don't follow hockey, when you think of the great Canadian hockey players, you think of tough guys. You think of guys who get their teeth knocked out and keep playing. You think of guys who grew up playing on ponds. That's not the Canadian hockey player anymore. The modern Canadian hockey player is a spoiled rich kid brat, and as a result, they play individual hockey. They don't play as a team. They're selfish, and then they get off the ice and go rape someone. That's the state of Hockey Canada. And it really pisses me off. We got to fix it because this is a disgrace. The Americans won again. And it wasn't even, they didn't even beat us in the final. The Canadians they'd been eliminated a week ago. They're an afterthought. It's unbelievable. All right, I had to get that off my chest. I talked about it on the Odd Shark show, but I only talked about it for a minute or two. I wasn't able to give my full thoughts, and it's something that I've been brewing inside me since the end of the World Juniors, because it's a fucking disgrace. That team should be ashamed of themselves. And everyone involved in Hockey Canada should be fucking ashamed of themselves. All right, let's talk football. Hopefully you fast forwarded, if you didn't care about that, to the 12-minute mark, because that's what we're at right now. I guess I had 12 minutes of ranting about that to talk about. We are going to talk about football now. Let's recap the road to 272. I finally had a winning week. How about that? I went 10-5-1 in week 18. So yeah, still a losing season by a long shot. Still the worst season that I had in road to 272 history, but at least it softened the blow a little bit. We went 10-5-1 plus 4.46 units in week 18. There you go. We found some momentum. So that brings the fifth edition of the Road to 272 has been wrapped up. I finished 131, 135, and 6 for minus 13.45 units. That is a little over a unit worse than 2022 when I finished minus 12.32. So now through 5 seasons, I am still in the positive. I have done this 5 years in a row. The first year was the road to 256 because week 18 didn't exist in 2020. So my career date for the road to 272 sits at 680 wins, 638 losses, 26 pushes for plus 9.45 units. So yeah, we had a bad season. We had the worst season. In the grand scheme of things, we're still in the green. We got to bounce back next year for the road to 272. I did break things down a little bit. I did take some notes about some recaps about generally what I thought of this season. And let's just start with how I did when you split it up spread, totals, and money lines. Because as you know, on every game, I either bet the spread, I bet the total, or I bet the underdog on a money line. Totals this season, I actually finished in the green. Not by much, but totals, I went 20, 18, and 2 for plus 0.3 units. Spreads this season, I finished slightly down. 105, 96, and 4 for minus 0.55 units, which means my money line picks this season, and I had said this in the weeks prior, that's what was killing me. I could not hit an upset winner to save my life. Even in week 18, one of my losses was the Vikings money line. My money line picks 6 and 21 for minus 13.2 units. That's what cost me this year. And my biggest year in 2021, when I won over 25 units, I crushed money line upsets. That's why I was up so many units by the end of the season. This year, I could not hit one to save my life. I think I went over this last time. I think last time I hit an upset pick, I think was week 5, the Cowboys in week 5. And then nothing but losses. My spreads and totals were basically a wash. If my money lines were even good enough where it was a wash, I would have finished right around even money for the season. But instead, I lost 13.2 units money line upsets. Now, there's a reason why. This was a historic season for favorites. It was a historic season for the public betting side. That is the story of the 2024 NFL betting season. Not just for me. This is data that you can look up. Favorites dominated. Underdogs had a terrible year. And the public crushed. Actually, I saw a report FanDuel profited. It was like $320 million less than expected because the public had such a good NFL betting season. Which does, fortunately for me, unfortunately for you listeners, stroke my ego. Because I'd like to say I'm going to learn from my mistakes, but what that tells me is that it's just like, even though I lost, I was actually the smart guy. I was actually on the right side of the bets. Even though every other person won, the public won, casual bettors won, and their bank rolls and bank accounts are better off because of it, I'm actually the smart guy, is basically what I've determined from all the reports saying the public had a huge season. But I truly, in all seriousness, I think it does teach me a lesson about sometimes we can have a full season where favorites and, quote unquote public plays or quote unquote square plays can win for an entire season. I kept betting with the same strategy, which generally I am a contrarian bettor. I look for a reason to bet on the team nobody wants to bet on. I look for a reason to bet the underdogs. I expected that eventually that was going to turn around. That eventually the public was going to have a reckoning and the sports books were going to clean up. That didn't happen. It was week after week after week after week of the public crushing it. And I didn't learn my lesson. I continued to stick to the same strategy, and it cost me. And that's why the first half of the season, I was actually doing all right. I was, profitable. Second half of the season, that's where I got all my losses because I didn't learn from my mistakes. I assumed things were going to regress to the mean, and they never did. And because I forced myself to do a money line upset pick every week, and because underdogs just didn't win this season, my money line record was terrible. Now, there were upsets for sure. Upsets did happen. It's not like there's never any upsets, but I just never was on the right one. There's a few every week, and I was never on the right one. So I think the big takeaway for me personally is that sometimes there's little parity in the NFL. Generally, I think the NFL has a lot of parity, and that's why generally we see unexpected outcomes. We see upset winners. We see, big underdogs not only cover, but sometimes win in these situations. Because I think, what team was it? It was the Giants beating the Colts in week 17. They were like the first underdog of 6 points or more to win in like 40 games with a 6-point underdog or more. It was like favorites of 6 points or more were like 37-0. We're on like a 37-0 run straight up before the Giants beat the Colts in week 17. So yeah, it wasn't my year. The way I bet it didn't work, but I think moving forward, I think I need to recognize early in the season that it is a year that doesn't have parity. It is a year where there are good teams and they are bad teams, and those two are going to be on opposite ends of the spectrum for the entire season. I need to recognize that and adjust midway instead of being stubborn and sticking to my strategy. At the end of the day, and a lot of pro bettors, and I think if I were to ask pro bettors, like if I were to ask Rob Pizzola what my main goal should be for someone who bets in with a not very smart strategy, I think he would say just try to get the best number possible. Just try to get CLV. And I did get CLV. I averaged actually, let me quickly adjust this. I averaged 1.5 CLV per game. 1.5% of CLV per game. Now, obviously, me placing all my bets on Monday night, there was games I didn't get CLV. There was games I got a bad number. But overall for the season, an average of 1.5% of positive CLV. So I kind of did my job there. It is crazy that I had positive CLV on average the entire season and still finished down as much as I did, to be honest. But that's because the public was so good, the actually getting a good number meant that you were probably on the wrong side. Because if you got a good number, the sharps moved in that direction, but then the sharps lost anyways. But it's good to know that kind of a season is possible. Moving on to the player prop countdown. This is my first year betting player props in the regular season. I did finish as a down as well. 87, 91, and 2. So it was 10 player props a week. That equals 180 player props, 87, 91, and 2 for minus 6.73 units. I will continue to do player props. I won't be able to do player prop. I got to think of something else for player props because I was betting them on Wednesday night. And on Wednesday night, some games didn't have player props posted at all. And the games that did had the main players posted, but there's a lot of times that there's like a niche player, like I want to take like the over rushing yards of a backup running back or a receptions on a fourth string receiver. The kind of niche players in games didn't have props posted at all on Wednesday night. So I was stuck to kind of using, the starting running backs over rushing yards or, a receivers over receptions. There's I think in the player prop market where you can get an edge is on kind of those more niche players, and those props just aren't available Wednesday night. So I'll think about my strategy for that next year. Maybe I just won't include Thursday Night Football on Player Prop Countdown. Maybe I'll record it on Thursday night and release it Friday morning. Maybe I'll record it Friday and just release it on Saturday for the weekend. I don't know. I got to think about that, but I think my main issue was there are so many times I was like, ooh, I really want to bet on this player. Ooh, I really want to fade this player. And I just couldn't because the prop wasn't out on Wednesday night. Like I said, every week there'd be like 2 to 3 games. There'd be no props posted. And so I just can't bet props in those games, even though I think there's an angle I want to take. Still, finished down units. No kind of hiding away from that. But that was a learning experience, my first season betting on player props. Let's wrap up the recap by talking 32 bets for 32 teams when I placed a futures bet for all 32 NFL teams. Actually, let me see. Can I share my screen here by any chance? So then you YouTube, you video watchers will actually be able to watch me going through this. NFL futures, here we go. Okay. Window capture. If I scroll down here, yep. Here we go. Subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube, and you will be able to follow along with this. This is the article I wrote. If you listen to the audio version of this, it's all the same picks. As I usually do with all my podcasts. There's almost always a written version to go along with it. So I did this in chronological order. I'll try not to take too much time here. I'll whip through this because this is, of course, 32 bets. But quickly, I think it is just kind of funny to look back at some of these and my thoughts on them. Cardinals, my best bet for them was Marvin Harrison, Offensive Rookie of the Year, plus 750. Did not look good. Marvin Harrison actually, like, what would you rank him amongst rookie receivers this year? Like 7th, 6th, 5th? Ugh. Caught a ton of touchdowns, not even close to being even in the mix for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Bad bet. You want to talk about bad bet? Atlanta Falcons, best bet. Kirk Cousins to win MVP. Oops. Whoopsie. 40-1. Kirk Cousins to win. Actually, it didn't look too bad. And like after that 500-yard game against the Bucs in like week 7, it didn't look terrible. But then obviously fell off a cliff from there. Oops. I've said my thing about Kirk Cousins. I don't need to go into that anymore. I don't know which bet was worse, this bet or 2 years ago when I bet Matt Ryan to win MVP when he was with the Colts. Probably that, because he didn't even show a flash of being competent that year. Baltimore, so 2 losses to start. Baltimore Ravens to win the AFC North. That was a win at plus 145. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen over 48.5 rushing yards. He did hit that. I don't have the exact number in front of me. He finished with 5 something. So that hit for the Bills. Bryce Young under 3,200.5 passing yards. I nailed this one. Now, thankfully, he didn't play the whole season and play as well as he did in the last 6 weeks, or else this probably would have been a loser. But he did get benched for enough games that he didn't even sniff 3,200 yards. So that was a winner for the Panthers. Bears to miss the playoffs, minus 105. That might have been my best bet of this entire board. This was an easy peasy lemon squeezy. Minus 105. The Bears were not going to make the playoffs. I actually wrote, I wouldn't argue against the bet on them to go over the win total of 8.5. Yeah. Well, they kind of had a chance, I guess. Yeah. Cincinnati Bengals under 10.5 wins, plus 120. Nailed that one because of their defense. Yeah, and that's, I even wrote, their defense gave up 6 yards per play last season, the worst mark in the entire league. I saw the writing on the wall with Cincinnati and what was going to happen with their defense. This is a weird one. Cleveland Browns' best bet was Amari Cooper to go over 925.5 receiving yards. Obviously left the Browns, went to the Bills, was traded, and then hasn't really done anything with the Bills. So he didn't even sniff this mark. So that was a loss. Cowboys over 9.5 wins. That was a loss. Broncos over 5.5 wins. It is true. I was a Broncos believer. Took them at over 5.5 at plus 105. There you go. Detroit Lions. I faded Detroit Lions. I tried to be a little contrarian there. That one blew up in my face. Under 10.5 wins. That was a loser. And by the way, I'm going on a little stretch of losers here. Packers to win NFC North. Had a chance. I think it was still worth a bet at plus 230. They did not come through. Joe Mixon under 850.5 rushing yards for the Texans. I thought they were going to go a lot more running back by committee in Houston. They did not. Joe Mixon was their bell cow back, and he went over this mark even with missing a couple games. My Colts best bet was Latu, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he had a solid season, I'm pretty sure, but Jared Verse is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I don't think Latu is really in the mix. So that's a loss. Jaguars to win the AFC South. That was a horrific bet. I still kind of agree with my reasoning. I think it would have been hard to envision the Jaguars having as bad of a season as they did. Chiefs. Best bet, this is the biggest heartbreak of all my futures bets. My Chiefs' best bet was Travis Kelce to go over 830.5 receiving yards at minus 112. And he finished with 823, and he did not play the last game. So if that last game was meaningful for the Chiefs and he caught an 8-yard catch, this would have hit. So missed by 7 yards. Las Vegas Raiders over 6.5 wins. That was a loser. Chargers to make the playoffs plus 112. That was a winner. Rams to make the playoffs plus 106. That was a winner. A couple of plus money winners there for the two LA teams to make the playoffs. Miami Dolphins best bet over 9.5 wins. I think they would have got there if Tua didn't get hurt. Tua got hurt, and that was the end of that. This might have been the worst bet of the season. Minnesota Vikings, last remaining winless team, 11-1. Now, my defense is that my argument, and you can see it written here, is not necessarily that I thought the Vikings were going to be the worst team in the NFL. It's that their schedule was extremely difficult after week 1. Now, they did beat the Giants in week 1, but had they lost to the Giants, they would have had the 49ers, Texans, Packers, Jets, Lions, and Rams all next in a stretch of the next handful of games. They won basically all those games. But still, my defense is that this was a bet of not me saying the Vikings are going to be the worst team in the NFL. I just thought the first half of their schedule was difficult, which it was. Still a loser, and in hindsight, tough. Patriots' worst regular season record. Would have had this if they did not beat the Bills in Week 18. They lose to the Bills in Week 18, and this would have been a plus 350 winner. Unfortunately, they beat the Bills' backups, lost the number 1 overall pick, and as a result, lost this bet for me. Saints under 7.5 wins, even money. That was fantastic. Giants' best bet was under 6.5 wins, easy winner. New York Jets. I made videos for this. I pleaded from the heavens. I told you all the Jets will stink this year. And I even wrote here, the Jets are the most fraudulent team in the NFL heading into the 2024 season. Correct. I was once again correct, sniffing out a fraud. The Jets were fraudulent. They stunk. Didn't even sniff 10 wins. That was a plus money winner. Eagles to win the NFC East. That was a winner. This is the only one that's not decided. Now, TJ Watt, unfortunately, I had a plus 750 ticket on TJ Watt to win Defensive Player of the Year. Week 14, he was an odds-on favorite, and then he fell off a cliff and did nothing in like the last 5 weeks. Patrick Surtain is now like a minus 320 favorite, I think. So it looks like he's going to win. TJ Watt is still second on the odds list. There's an outside shot Watt can win this. But based on the odds, I've chalked up the fact it's going to go to Surtain, and TJ Watt's going to lose this. So this was the swing. Actually, if a couple of swings, both TJ Watt and actually if the Patriots would have lost that game, I would have finished profitable for the year on these. Patriots lost that last game. Damn. 49ers, NFC number 1 seed, loser. Seattle Seahawks, DK Metcalf, over 950.5 receiving yards. This did hit, not by much, but it did hit. Baker Mayfield. This might have been the best bet I placed all season. Baker Mayfield over 3,500.5 passing yards. I thought that was a crazy total. And he hit the over on that by 1,000 yards. I don't think I'll ever hit a bet as big as I hit this one in my life. It hit by 1,000 yards. That was he must have hit the over on this by like week 10. Titans, there's a reason I continue to bet on them. I was high on them preseason, over 6.5 wins. Loser. They finished with the worst record. Commanders. I did believe in the Commanders. Over 6.5 wins at -115. So my futures finished 14 wins, 18 losses, -3.67 units. The Patriots won, losing on week 18, stinger. TJ Watt, losing Defensive Player of the Year late in the season, stinger. Travis Kelce losing the over on his receiving yards because he didn't play week 18 and still only missed it by 7 yards. Stinger. But that is the way the cookie crumbles. So there you go. That's a recap of my NFL regular season betting results. Road to 272, player prop countdown, and 32 bets for 32 teams. It is time to get into my picks for wildcard round. Thankfully, finally, I know there are a lot of you that are listening to this and watching this that are saying, Ian, just get to the fucking picks. That's all we care about. Wait no more. The picks are here. It is time to get into it. The road to Super Bowl 59 starts now.
I'm not a state. I'm a monster.
No, Lisa. The only monster here is the gambling monster that has enslaved your mother. I call him Gambler, and it's time to snatch your mother from his neon claws.
All right, a couple quick last-second things before I get into my picks for Wildcard Weekend. I got the chance to interview Rob Gronkowski and Drew Brees earlier today. That interview is already up. Check out the Stacking the Box YouTube channel. I also tweeted out the link to it along with a clip of me just getting body bagged. I just got body bagged by two guys who have already caused me a lot of heartbreak in my life. Drew Brees being the quarterback of the Saints for 15 years and Gronkowski being part of the Patriots team that came back 28-3 against my Falcons and then went to the Buccaneers and then dominated the NFC South for a couple of years. So as soon as Brees hopped on the Zoom call, he was like, oh, you're a Falcons fan, because he saw the helmet in my background. He's like, oh, we're off to a great start. And then I tried to come at them a little bit, and they gave me some blows back. So check out that interview. It was a very fun interview. And I will be, I don't think I've announced this yet, I will be in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59. I am extremely, extremely, extremely excited for it. It is a dream come true to be able to go to the Super Bowl as a member of the media to cover it. I will be there media day. I think that's the Monday night of Super Bowl week. I will then be part of Radio Row throughout the week. And then I believe I also will be at the game itself on Sunday. So if you are in New Orleans for Super Bowl week, if you're going to the Super Bowl, hit me up. I will be around. I plan on just running on fumes all week. I plan on working hard and partying hard in New Orleans. I'm not going to get too crazy. Obviously, some nights, the night before, I think for Radio Row, I think the busiest day is Wednesday. I'm not going to get too crazy Tuesday night, but I will be gambling. I will be having some drinks. I'll be having some smokes. So yeah, let me know if you're in New Orleans Super Bowl week and get excited for some content from there. Words can't describe. It's like I don't, and this is I've actually known this for a little while now, but I almost believe like it's not going to happen. Like something's going to happen, and then I can't go to the Super Bowl. So, but I mean, we're 4 weeks away from me taking the trip to New Orleans. I think it's safe. I won't believe it until I'm there though. So, very excited for that dream come true. All right, let's get into my picks. Like I said, I do have a pick on a side or total for every game, also a player prop for every game. I'm just going to go game by game, so I'll go in chronological order. I'll give my pick or total, and then my player prop, and then just move on to the next game. So, as is tradition, the Houston Texans, Saturday afternoon. They literally always play Saturday afternoon in the playoffs. I do get it. I get it's like Maybe they're not the most popular team, not the biggest fan base, not the biggest TV draw, but like you would think that some point, like the NFL would be like, yeah, maybe we've given them the Saturday afternoon games enough. Maybe we'll throw them a bone and put them on one of the night games or a Sunday afternoon game. Let's get crazy. But no, they're like, oh, Texans are in the playoffs Saturday afternoon. It is comical that like everyone jokes about it, but then it continues to be true every single year. So we do have the Texans and the Chargers, and it does always feel like they play a team like the Browns or the Chargers that are like kind of interesting teams, but like also not necessarily like a primetime pull either. Also with the Bills, why do the Bills always play Sunday afternoon? It's like the same teams playing the same time slots every year. I don't know, whatever. I'll take the Chargers. -3, even money. I do need to double check these odds because I placed these bets on Monday night. I thought I was going to record Monday night. Things got too crazy. I bet this at Caesars. It's now -3, -105. Obviously, I still like it at that price. I just don't see a reason how you can bet on the Texans. The offense is 25th in the NFL in EPA per play, 31st in success rate. Also, by the way, I think maybe just parlay all favorites on the money line this week. Why change? Why change from what's happened all season, which is just the better teams win, the better teams cover. So I'm just going to follow that strategy for the most part. I am taking a couple underdogs to cover, but I think I am just going to do an all favorites parlay. And the Chargers are a team that I do think win, and I do think cover as favorites. Like I said, Texans offense has been terrible. They've gotten worse since Tank Dell has gone down, since Stephon Diggs has gone down. Now, they do have a pretty solid defense, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to save them in this spot. Also, Chargers are on the road, but they've actually played better on the road this season. They have a net yards per play on the road of +0.5, and then their net yards per play at home is -0.4, so they've actually played significantly better on the road this season. So unless the Texans offense decides to wake up, or maybe they can run the ball really successfully against LA, which I don't necessarily see that happening, I think the Texans win and cover this one fairly easy. The Chargers win and cover this one fairly easy. I'll take the Chargers -3, even money. My prop bet for this is my favorite prop bet of the wild card round. It is a kicker prop. It is I can never pronounce his first name. Kaimi. I think it's Kaimi Fairbairn, the Texans kicker. I have him over 7.5 kicking points at even money. The reason why is because last night when I made these picks, I did want to go over 1.5 field goals or over 2.5 field goals. That prop was not offered. Is it offered now? At BetMGM, over 1.5 field goals is -145. Love that bet. I would even sprinkle a little over 2.5 at probably some good odds. I had to settle for over 7.5 kicking points. That obviously takes into consideration extra points. Now, 2 field goals and 2 extra points will get there. I think it's actually probably more likely he kicks 3 field goals, so you might want to see an over 2.5 alt line for field goals for Fairbairn. The reason being is because this game, and it is a big reason why I actually like the Chargers to win and cover as well, is because we have one of the worst red zone offenses against the best red zone defense. The Texans' red zone offense ranks 26th in the NFL. They score a touchdown on just 49.12% of red zone trips. The Chargers' defense leads the NFL in red zone defense, keeping teams to scoring a touchdown on just 45% of their red zone trips against them. So what happens when a bad red zone offense goes up against a good red zone defense? Typically, they don't score touchdowns. Typically, they have to settle for field goals. Typically, that means their kicker is going to have a busy day. So I'll take Fairbairn over 7.5 kicking points at +100. I don't know if I brought the graphic up. For the video people, there it is. Fairbairn over 7.5 kicking points +100. Moving on to the Saturday night game, which a lot of people are saying this is the one they're most excited for. Actually, this is the one I'm least excited for. I don't really care about seeing the Ravens and Steelers play again. I actually don't like divisional matchups in the playoffs. I just feel like I want to see new matchups. I want to see some interesting matchups. And this is not an interesting one to me because I think the Ravens steamroll them. I got the Ravens at -9.5. I believe it's ballooned up to 10. No, you can still get -9.5. I actually put the wrong odds there. I got -9.5, -115, which is at FanDuel, and it is still, as of Tuesday night, at that price at FanDuel. The Steelers have shown they are the same team as they were last year. Hot start, some upsets people didn't expect early in the year. stumble late in the season, back into the playoffs, and then lose by plenty of points. That's what happened last year against the Bills. Same thing happened 3 years ago against the Chiefs. Hot start, stumble in the playoffs, lose by 21 points to the Chiefs. It's going to be the same thing. Hot start to the season, some upset wins, some surprising wins. Mid-season, we're like, oh, are the Steelers actually good? Maybe they are. They then lose a bunch of games in a row, stumble in the playoffs, and I think they're going to lose by a ton of points. I also think the Ravens are the best team in the NFL right now. I think they're better than the Lions because of how banged up the Lions are. The Eagles, who knows what's going on with Jalen Hurts. Also, don't really trust the Eagles' passing game. The Ravens have had a ton of issues defensively. Since week 10, the Baltimore Ravens rank second in the NFL in EPA per play and second in the NFL in opponent EPA per play. So they are the number 2 defense and the number 2 offense since week 10. Is what other teams should be saying. And the Steelers are by far the worst playoff team. So I think we have the best team in the playoffs against the worst team in the playoffs. I think it's an absolute rout. I will take the Ravens minus 9.5. I do like it at 10. Once you get to 10.5, I think you got to maybe just take the under. My player prop for this game, though, is a prop on a Steelers player. It is a prop I've actually bet quite a bit this season, and it's been good to me. I'm going to go back to it. It is George Pickens for his longest reception, and it's very hard for me to actually put this on this graphic here. How am I going to do this? Longest catch? Nope, it's still not going to fit. You get the point. George Pickens' longest catch over 23.5 yards at minus 120. I know he put up a goose egg in week 18 against the Bengals. I don't care. We have enough history of him hauling in big catches this season that I'm going to bet on it. He actually has a catch of 27 plus yards in 11 of his 14 games this season. He had a 37-yard catch in his only start against the Ravens this season. And the Ravens defense, while improved, has still given up 58 passing plays of 20-plus yards in the NFL, the third most in the league. George Pickens to record just one single catch of at least 24 yards. Moving on to Sunday's games, I will take the Denver Broncos on Sunday afternoon to cover 9 points. Now, I actually think you can get a better number now. No, it's still 9, at least at BetMGM. I still think the Bills win this game. 9 points is too rich, in my opinion, though. I actually set the spread at, to be honest, now this is me, just not having a good number, but, I would say, the Bills, 6.5. I'm, a couple of points off. Now, probably that's not right, but still, I think 9's not right either. And it comes down to defense. Yes, the Bills' offense is significantly better. We know that. I'm not going to make the argument that they're not. But the Broncos' defense, here's where they rank in some key categories. Second in opponent yards per play. First in opponent EPA per play. Second in opponent success rate. Third in opponent points per game. First, second, third, second. The Bills' defense in those stats rank 21st, 16th, 20th, 11th. Ooh. Bills defense has kind of actually been not good a lot of games, and they're hiding behind how good their offense is. Not enough people are talking about how bad the Bills defense is. For me to lay 9 points on a team, especially in the playoffs, I need them to be the better team on both sides of the football. That is clearly not the case in this game. If Josh Allen has a couple hiccups, if the Broncos defense plays well, this game I think is going to be a lot closer than people think. And if I were to pick one upset this week, I would take the Broncos. Now, I'm not betting any team to win outright as an upset. I don't have that rule for the playoffs like I do in the regular season. But gun to my head, if I had to pick one upset to happen, I would pick the Broncos to beat the Bills, to be honest. Any team can win any game if they have that good of a defense, and the Broncos have that good of a defense. I'll take them plus 9, minus 110. My player prop for this game, and this is going to be blasphemy, but it's kind of follows the same game script, is for Josh Allen to go under 222.5 passing yards. Now, you can already get a much better number than this. Generally, when it comes to unders and player props, it's good to wait as long as you can because it's already up to 229. So I have a terrible number on this, but this is what happens when I have to place all my bets before I record a podcast early in the week. Under 222.5 pass yards is where I got it, unfortunately. And it just comes down to how good the Broncos secondary is. Third in, okay, so I need to fix my article. I wrote, they allow the third fewest is what I meant to write. Typo. Whoever edited this article did not edit. Actually, I think I might have just edited my own article here. Oops. They allow the third fewest yards per pass attempt, 6.2. They also rank first in opponent dropback EPA and third in opponent dropback success rate this season. You also might be surprised to find out that despite Josh Allen likely being, or not likely, it's probably pretty close to a coin flip. Despite Josh Allen having a good chance of winning NFL MVP this season, he is only averaging 219.5 passing yards per game. Now, to be fair, a big reason to that is because he took one snap in Week 18. So that brought down his average because that counts as a start. So really, if you take out Week 18, he's probably averaging like 230, 240 something. But that doesn't sound as good, does it? No, it does not. Still, this is a tough game for Josh Allen. I think the Bills would be smart to kind of keep the ball on the ground, keep things in front of them, try not to get too crazy. And I think that's going to lead to Josh Allen going under his passing yards total. I'm trying to filibuster while I can go edit this article and fix that typo. So I'm just going to keep talking and saying words until I can do that. Josh Allen, the Broncos defense rank third. They allow the third fewest. Whoops. Not good. Not good, Ian. Cannot have typos like that. All right, let's move on to the late afternoon game on Sunday. Packers, Eagles. I wish this was the Sunday night game. I don't really care. I mean, the thing about Commanders, Buccaneers is I don't want to watch either team because the Commanders eliminated the Falcons in Week 17, and then the Buccaneers actually eliminated the Falcons in Week 18, and the Buccaneers are a rival. So the Commanders and the Buccaneers are two teams I hate. I'm kind of sick of them. So I wish the Sunday night game was Packers, Eagles. But it's not. It is the late afternoon game. I'm going to take Packers +4. I set the Eagles as 3-point favorites. I think we're getting a point of value here, and I actually think you can get 4.5. Yeah, it has moved to 4.5, so you can get an even better number than me. First things first, I will say we do not know Jalen Hurts, whether or not he's going to be released from concussion protocol. Now, Adam Schefter tweeted on either Tuesday morning or Monday evening that Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. Well, it turns out, of course, he is because he's not going to be released from concussion protocol until Wednesday at the earliest because that's when they have their first practice. That was kind of a engagement farming tweet by Adam Schefter, as far as I understand. Still, concussions, and I talked about this last week, concussions are weird, man. It's not like an injury where when you're going to be back. Sometimes with concussions, you're like, oh, I might be back by next week, and then you're not back till next year. They are a weird entity that we still don't fully understand. So not positive if Jalen Hurts is going to play. But the reason why I like the Packers beyond that is the Packers still, outside of a couple of bad weeks, they still rank third in the NFL in net yards per play at +0.9. +0.9 net yards per play on the road this season as well, so they've played well on the road. And they do have the ability to stop the run because the key to beating the Eagles is stopping the run. 48.83% of the Eagles' offensive yards they gain come on the ground. The Packers rank third in opponent yards per carry, allowing just 4 yards per rush. They're also 7th in opponent rush EPA and 5th in opponent rush success rate. If they can slow down the Packers' rush attack, I think they can keep this game close. So I think there's some value there. Above the number of 3 at 4, or now the number is 4.5. I'm going to do another longest reception play as my player prop in this game, but it's going to be on an under. It's going to be Jaden Reed to go under, his longest reception to be under 20.5 yards at -110. Now, the issue with this bet, which makes me the most scared, is that Christian Watson is out. Christian Watson is their deep threat. Now, I think their deep threat's now going to be either Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks, but it could be Jaden Reed. He may see 1 or 2 more deep shots because Christian Watson's out, but that's hard to predict. What I do know is that he has the fewest air yards per reception amongst all Packers receivers at 12.4. He also has only recorded a reception of 21 yards or longer in 8 of their 17 games this season. So that is less than 50% of the time he has a catch of 21 yards or more. And on top of that, the Eagles secondary has allowed the fewest catches of 20 plus yards with 35 this season. So not typically a deep threat guy. Even his long receptions are more yak, come because of yards after the catch. And now he takes on a secondary that doesn't typically allow deep balls. So Jaden Reed, longest reception under 20.5 yards. Let me just see what the latest odds of that are. Yep, still the exact same at DraftKings. Sunday night, I will be taking the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football against the Washington Commanders. I think it comes to style of play, and the Buccaneers, I think, are going to be able to run the ball all over the Commanders. The Commanders allow 4.8 yards per carry. That's the 5th most in the NFL. Bucky Irving, I think, is going to have a big game, and the Commanders have struggled on the road. They're actually 27th in the NFL in net yards per play on the road. The home and away splits are significant for the Commanders. Significantly better numbers when playing at home this season. Significantly worse numbers when playing on the road. That is key in the playoffs, I think. And now we do have enough data from this season to really lean into home and away splits, I believe. Also, the Buccaneers quietly become one of the most elite teams in the NFL, in my opinion, actually. If you want a futures bet, I think the one that holds the best value is for the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl, as much as that pains me. But they are 5th in the NFL in net yards per play at plus 0.7, 4th in EPA per play, 7th in opponent EPA per play since Week 10. They have played some extremely good football. Their season-long numbers are good. Their second half of the season numbers are good. And the Commanders, while electric at times, there's a lot of red flags. Their road splits are a red flag. They're 13th in the NFL in net yards per play, 19th in opponent EPA since Week 10. I just think the Buccaneers are overall the better football team. So laying 3 points at home, especially against a team that has not played well on the road this season, I don't think that's too much to ask. So I will take the Buccaneers -3, -115. My player prop lines up with exactly what I just said. I said Bucky Irving, I think, is going to have a big game. So we're just straightforward. Bucky Irving over 87.5 rush yards. I don't think the market has adjusted what his rushing yards number should be yet. He has now hit 88 yards or more on the ground in 5 of his last 7 starts. And one of those starts he didn't get it. He got hurt and he only had a couple carries. So really 5 of his last 6 starts where he played from start to finish. The number's still at 87.5 at FanDuel, so there you go. And like I said, the Commanders' run defense is bad, and the Buccaneers have stopped handing the ball to Rachaad White. Bucky Irving is now their main runner of the football. Rachaad White still gets in there occasionally. Rachaad White still catches some balls, but Bucky Irving is their main rusher. I'll take him over 87.5 rush yards. Monday Night Football. I really wish that Sam Darnold didn't have that bad of a performance in Week 18, because I would have been all over the Vikings. I don't like the Rams. I think the Rams are the second or third worst team in the NFL playoffs. I think it's the Steelers and then a toss-up between the Texans and Rams for the second worst team in the NFL playoffs. I wanted to fade the Rams, but now Sam Darnold had that performance where it's like, why is Sam Darnold now a pumpkin? Is Sam Darnold the old Sam Darnold? I saw a tweet that it was his most overthrows since the game where he sat on the bench against the Patriots and said, "I'm seeing ghosts." Not a good sign. Do I want to believe that was an anomaly game, an outlier game, that he's going to bounce back in a big way in the wild card round? I want to. But the fact that bad performance came in their biggest game of the year, which is what people were predicting about Sam Darnold this season, is not promising. In the same breath, I don't want to back the Rams offense. I think the Rams offense is extremely overrated this season. Rams only 16th in the NFL in yards per play, 14th in EPA per play. Matt Stafford's stats have been below average all season. I'll take the under. Now, if you remember, I bet the under when these two teams played in Week 8, and it lost because of a safety on the Vikings' last drive. A safety where Sam Darnold was also getting his face mask ripped off his head. But that wasn't called. Now, I wouldn't have won the bet. It was under 48, and it was at 48. So the safety just pushed it over. It turned a push into a loss. But still, it shouldn't have happened. It was a bad beat. But I'm back on the under again this time. Another big thing to keep in mind, red zone offense is bad for both teams. Vikings 19th in red zone offense. Rams are 25th. Rams red zone defense, good. 5th in red zone defense. If red zone trips don't result in touchdowns, unders are going to hit. Under 47, Rams and Vikings. Now, my player prop doesn't make sense because my player prop it contradicts an underplay. Because I'm betting an anytime touchdown scorer. I am going to take TJ Hawkinson to score plus 215. I get it doesn't make sense. Because if I'm going to bet the under on a game, why would I bet a touchdown score? That doesn't make sense. I get it. But what I'm trying to do here is fade what the Rams have not done well, which is defend tight ends. The Rams have given up the 2nd most receptions to tight ends this season, 106. The 4th most yards to tight ends, 1,101. And last time they played the Vikings, TJ Hawkinson did not play. Josh Oliver was their starting tight end, and he scored a touchdown. Now, as I'm saying this, is the fact that the Rams give up that many yards and receptions to tight ends related to the fact that they have to play George Kittle twice and Trey McBride twice in a season? I'm kind of realizing as I'm saying this, yes, probably a little bit at least. But still, it's time for the Vikings to get TJ Hawkinson going. It is a weakness of the Rams regardless. I think there's some value on Hawkinson to score at north of 2-1 odds, plus 215. So there you have it. Those are my wild card picks. Let's just go ahead and recap them. I have Chargers -3 even money with Fairbairn over 7.5 kicking points at even money. I got George Pickens longest reception over 23.5 yards -120. Ravens -9.5 -115. Broncos +9 with Josh Allen under 222.5 pass yards. I got Jaden Reed longest reception under 20.5 yards. I got Packers +4. I got Buccaneers -3 -115 with Bucky Irving over 87.5 rush yards -114. And then I have the under 47 between the Vikings and Rams with TJ Hawkinson over 0.5 touchdowns. Anytime touchdown, basically. Plus 215. All right, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Listen to my rant about Hockey Canada at the start. Getting through my recap, listen to my picks, subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube, rate and review the audio version of this podcast. Listen to my interview with Drew Brees and Rob Gronkowski, which is up on the Stacking the Box YouTube channel. Gamble or bless, I will be back next week to give out my picks for the divisional round. And before we know it, the Super Bowl will be here, and I will be... what is the drink that they make in New Orleans? I don't know. Whatever that fancy drink is that they make in New Orleans, I will be there sipping them and having a good time Super Bowl week. I love you all. Take care. Gambler or bless. Bye. The road to not 272, the road to Super Bowl 59 starts now.